normal, but just try.
Yeah. What time are we?
Maybe do the breakfast.
I have breakfast.
Morning, Lauren. And Morris. Well, it was.
I think we'll get the meeting on the road. And welcome, everybody. And John, are you there? Can you hear us? Are you just...
Yeah, I can hear you fine. I'm not sure how you guys can hear me.
We can see you. We can't hear you, but we can see you. Just kidding. So then we'll start with the adoption of the agenda. Are there any additions or deletions?
No, they're not.
Okay, can I have a mover? Okay, Mark?
So moved. Move the adoption of the agenda as presented.
Okay, thank you. Everybody in favor? That's carried. And we'll have the minutes of June 16th. Were there any errors or omissions? If not, can I have a mover? Eric? Everybody in favor? Okay, that's carried. And now we'll move on to introduction of the municipal intern and Jerry Vander Meulen. Vander Meulen, probably, to say it in Dutch.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Council. I just want to give a quick introduction to Jeremy Vander Meulen. He is our municipal intern. He'll be with us for the next 18 months. The program is through Municipal Affairs, and there's 3 streams, and Jeremy will follow in the finance stream, so he'll be part of the Finance and Administration Department for the next 18 months.
Okay, thank you. So we'll start out with introducing council here and staff. So we'll start with Morris.
Oh, yeah, I'm Morris Zinstra. I'm in Division 7, and welcome.
Thank you.
Lauren Hickey, Division 1, and welcome to Lethbridge County, and I hope you enjoy your stay.
Eric Van Essen, Division 5, and first term of the council.
Hi. Morning and welcome. And I am Klaus Van der Veen, and I'm Division 6.
Welcome to the county. Mark Sayers, Division 3.
Yeah. And then we have John. He's on Teams. John, you want?
Jeremy, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Hi, Jeremy. Welcome to the organization. My name's John Curvis. I'm the counselor for Division 4.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and so we'll move on to staff. We'll do that in a minute too. Candace, you want to?
He's met us already.
Oh, he's met it. And you're, I'm sure he met you.
Yeah, Jeremy's been with us since June 27th.
Okay.
And
so
actually-
you've met all the staff. They don't
Yeah.
have to introduce themselves.
Does have some ties to Lethbridge County as well,
Okay.
as his mom's from the area, but he was born and raised up in Lacombe and then graduated from the University of Alberta.
Okay.
And absent today, Jeremy, is Reeve Torrey Campbell, and he's the counselor for Division 2.
Two. Yeah. 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 he's gone to a wedding, so it's a good thing.
Not his own, somebody
No.
else's.
Yeah, so we'll have a hearty welcome to the county, and I hope you have a good 18 months here, and that you enjoy yourself, and I think you're going to be working mostly with Jenn, so that's she's a nice person, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And you want to say anything yourself yet, or?
No, I think I kind of got the gist of things covered. It's just nice to be here and nice to have a job.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Our only challenge
Thank
is
you.
we
Yeah.
now have 2 Jeremys, so he's
Yeah.
Jeremy out.
But his hair is longer.
Yes, there's my phone.
All right, then we'll move on to the next item, and that's from delegations, and that's number 2, and that is Yolanda, Reimer, and Timothy Smith.
Larry's gonna give just.
And Larry's going to introduce this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, council and everyone present. Yes, Yolanda Reimer and Timothy Smith, or, I'm sorry, we might have your last name wrong. Is it Schmidt or Smith?
Smith.
It is Smith, pardon me.
Schmidt.
Okay.
Long time ago.
All right. Thank you. Anyways, Mr. Chairman and council, they're here today. They would like to address council with respect to the Lethbridge County Animal Control Bylaw.
Okay.
Okay, so if you guys would like, you can come on up and just either speak loudly or use the microphones a little bit just to project your voices, please. And thank you.
So, and with the introduction of Jeremy there, you guys know who y'all are now. So I would say, yeah, go ahead and present your what you wanted to present here today.
Good morning, Councilman. Today, we are here to express our concern with the current animal control bylaw, as known as Bylaw 17-008. We trust that each of you 7 councilmen received and looked over our emailed letter. We strongly feel this bylaw needs to be updated, which would include allowing cattle with the proper amount of land. Our property is located on the east end of Iron Springs, consisting of 3 acres. We have put countless hours and money into our property. When we first purchased our place, we had dreams of a lot of potential, which in this case included having some cattle to raise on our own. The property was already suited for livestock, as there was the proper fencing and shelter. We have since put a lot of that work and money into making it how we want to create a good, healthy life for both us and our cattle. My wife grew up around the community of Iron Springs and has always noticed some form of livestock on this property we currently reside on. We have had cattle for over 2 years without any knowledge of this bylaw. But we are aware of it now, and we are wanting a change. We have talked to a number of people in our community, and none of them knew about this bylaw, nor do they mind us having cattle. As we have asked and stated as to why horses are allowed and not cattle, that question has yet to be been answered. Our cattle are like our pets. They are our pride and joy.
Okay, thank you. Do you want to add anything to it?
No.
So I think the proper procedure here is that we take this as information, that you guys presented it here, and council will, at a later date, or deliberate that with your ask that you have. And you want to add something?
Yeah, just a suggestion too, just for the information of council, if we can take this back, staff can take this back, and we can do a more thorough report so that you can deliberate this at an upcoming council meeting.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Ann. So we will be, oh, sorry, Morris?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, when you called me, I was not even aware of it, you know, and yeah, it's, when we got hamlets like Iron Springs, you know, I think we certainly gotta look into that bylaw and see if we can change things. But how many animals do you have down there again?
We have 2 full-grown cows, 1 yearling, and 1 calf on the side.
And if the bylaw is gonna be changed, that possibility is that you're limited to have so many animals.
That's what we're asking. Like, we're fully abiding, law-abiding citizens. We understand there's rules and regulations being part of a hamlet. I guess just with our situation and our land, like, it's fully pastured already, suited for livestock, being on the edge of a hamlet, I guess. That's just all we're asking.
And if I may,
Yeah, go ahead.
and as they say, you never had any complaints from any of the neighbors, and, you know, that's something to, for us to look at too, you know, like if there is a complaint, well, that makes things a little harder, but there is no complaints.
There has
Well,
been nothing
Yeah,
that we
we've
know
asked,
of.
and what we've been told is there's been no complaints, so.
Great. Nice to see you in person.
You bet.
Okay, any more questions of council? If not,
I
then.
have a question.
Yes.
So we noticed that the bylaw was changed in 2017. We're just kind of wondering, like, why it was changed at that time, if anybody knows that, like, if there were problems with, livestock in hamlets, or kind of the reason for that.
Okay, Anne was going to answer that one.
Just so that we can all have the same amount of history. I wasn't here in 2017, but I'm not sure why it was changed, but I think that would be better served if we could make it part of the report so that everybody has the same information.
Okay, thank you. Morse?
I think Lauren probably could answer that better, but for what I remember, the reason it got changed, there was a person in a hamlet, and, well, they actually had, abundance of livestock down on there, and it was making massively acres, and that's when we as a council, were recommended to look into it, you know, and I guess that's not what we came up with. Isn't that all right?
I think that we shouldn't be discussing this any further. I think we're going to take that, staff is going to take it back, and they're going to report back to the next meeting that we have, and then we can discuss that at length. Okay, then I would, if there's no more questions.
I just say on behalf of myself, just thanks for coming in
Yeah.
and presenting.
Mhm.
Thanks for taking your time to
Yeah.
do that.
It's-
It helps clarify a bit things for me too, so, and we're on acreage in the county too, so I understand where you're coming from.
Thank you.
Okay, and so I want to thank you guys too for coming in, and we heard you guys, and we will, like we said, we will look into it, and then you will be contacted to what the decision of council is going to be.
And we'll advise you when that's coming back to council too.
Yeah.
As well.
Okay.
Okay, well, thank you very much for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, then we'll move on to E, subdivision applications, and that will start with the subdivision application 2022-0-081, Brewerton. Yes. If you guys are ready.
I'm not sure if John is going to be able to see this, but he'll have it.
He's got his iPad
Yeah,
with
he
him.
does.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got the proposal up here, so I can follow on with that, so no worries.
Perfect. Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So our first subdivision application for today, as mentioned, is 2022-0-081, and it is for the Brewertons and the Malmbergs, and it is to reconfigure the boundaries of 2 adjacent parcels by subdividing 2.2 acres of land from a 6.1 acre title and consolidating it to the adjacent 1 acre title, thus enlarging the smaller acreage. And this particular proposal does meet the Lethbridge County subdivision criteria. Oh, and it is located in between the Edgemore Estates subdivision and Sunset Acres. And I'll get Steve to do the comments and the recommendation.
Hey, Mr. Chair, this application in front of you, this first one is to accommodate a land swap between two parcels, a property line adjustment technically. As Hillary indicated, these are two older parcels that they weren't part of Sunset Acres or the Edgemore, sandwiched in between there. The one larger west lot had a house removed from it a while ago and is presently vacant, while the east 1 acre lot contains an existing dwelling. That parcel was created under older previous bylaw, which allowed 1 acre parcels at that time. Back in 2013, the county increased the minimum acreage parcel size to 2 acres. So this is a non-conforming lot created under previous bylaw. So the application for you is to realign the boundaries and enlarge the smaller east lot, and also enable it to have access to the South Cooley land, is to basically run a straight line down between the two parcels. The realignment will result in both the titles being extended to the full extent of the south boundary. The property line will be set back approximately 11.5 meters away, 11.57 meters to be exact, from the west wall of the existing dwelling on that smaller east lot, which exceeds the minimum 6.1 meter bylaw setback. So we're good on that. The servicing of the lots will be unaffected by the realignment. The east lot has a septic mound in place, and it's in the northeast corner, away from the lot line adjustment, so there'll be no encroachments or anything like that. As well, the access comes from the internal road system, from Sunset and Sunrise roads there, which will also be unaffected by the property boundary realignment. So this application, it does fall within the subdivision policies of a realignment, reconfiguration of titles. The land will be subdivided and consolidated on a new plan registered there. So we're starting with two titles, we're ending up with two, just the size between the two of them is being changed. As a result of this subdivision, that 1 acre will comply with the land use bylaw minimum 2 acre parcel size. This land is within the IDP area of the city of Lethbridge, in Lethbridge County IDP. That IDP allows for these realignment boundary adjustments types of subdivisions. The city of Lethbridge did respond to the referral, and they have no concerns or objections to the subdivision application in front of you. One of the other things to note was that this land is also in an area identified as containing a provincial historic resource. The historic resource administrator has responded, and they're not going to require anything in regards to this application, it being a boundary line adjustment. So with that, and no objections received, I have recommended approval to you. It would be based on the 4 conditions there in front of you in the draft resolution, that the property taxes are paid and up to date, that a development agreement's entered into with the county if required. The third being the important condition of the new survey plan reflecting the boundary adjustment. And then the fourth, that any easements is required by utility agencies. Since the application, the agenda package information was sent to you, we have heard back from ATCO, Gas, Fortis, and none of the utility agencies that require anything. So with that, I should also note too that the MR is not applicable on this application because it was previously paid when they was originally were created. So on that basis, I have recommended approval to you with those conditions outlined in the draft resolution.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Are there any questions of council? Lauren?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just, I'm kind of unclear as to which house has been removed. Like in the picture on this map, it doesn't have a page on it, but looks like there's 2 houses there. So you said one's been gone, is gone?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, through Councillor Hickey. If you look on the ortho photo on the screen, this is our most up-to-date ortho imagery, which shows the house on the east, the 1 acre parcel, is the one that stayed and existed. The one on the west parcel was removed. So that older house was in this area right here, to the west. But they did a really good job of grading their lot, so you can't even tell that it was there.
Any more questions?
Just to follow up, so given, what are the setbacks there? Like, I'm kind of opposed to doing this, given the problems we've had at Mountain Meadows. So what are the setbacks like in this area?
So, through the chair, this particular application, the residents would actually comply more so with the setbacks than it did before with the 1 acre parcel. And if they were to, when they did the residence there back in, I do believe that residence was constructed in 2015 and 2016, they did do a geotechnical report to verify the setbacks to the coulee, and any new residence that would be to be constructed on the Brewerton property would also have to do that. They could apply for a new residence today, and that would be their requirement that they would have today also, regardless of the subdivision.
Okay. Eric?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So in other applications, we see we have a request for professional soils analysis, and it's not in this subdivision. Is that because we're not building? How does that work?
Go ahead, Steve.
Mr. Chair, the soils test was previously done on this when these two lots were created, so at the time that they go to apply for a house, when they build the house on that west lot, they'll have to do one at that time for specific for the size of the house and that type of a thing. The situation is not changing. The two lots are there, and like I say, the boundary is being adjusted so that the east lot is being increased in size. So I think you need to look at that as that we're trying to improve. They're trying to improve the situation by giving more area to the east lot, which currently wouldn't be created today at the 1 acre size, so that area is being increased a little bit, and the setback to the house there, to the existing house on the east lot to the west property line exceeds the minimum of the land use bylaw.
So how far would that be from the drop-off going down to the coulee?
I don't think Mr. Chairman, I don't think we have that specific information, but they did do a geotechnical report to verify the development setback at the time of development.
Okay. Okay. Lauren?
Thank you. So it doesn't really look like you're gaining a lot of width east to west. It's more north to south you're increasing, but I don't see the value of adding that land because probably couldn't put a septic system into that anyways. So I'm not sure why they're doing that.
They are increasing the size on the top part of that smaller parcel, Mr. Chairman, through Councillor Hickey. So they're moving it further to the west, so they are gaining actual developable area on their parcel, and they're bringing that house into compliance. The adjacent lot has enough developable area to construct a residence, but once again, we would verify their development setback to the coulee at the time of the development permit to ensure that they're meeting that setback to the coulee edge.
Hard to tell from this map.
Yes.
Okay, any more questions of council? John, you have any questions?
Do they have? If you look at this one, you can see
No
the line.
questions per se, just comments. I have the ability because I've got this up on my laptop. The setback to the coulee is about 115 feet from the existing house that's there now, and I kind of understand where Lauren's coming from. It really doesn't increase any usable land because it's just chopping it and moving the one parcel into the coulees. But I honestly don't see, why we would have any major objection to it either. Because from the county standpoint, I can't see how it would affect anything that we have to deal with in our operations.
Steve?
Yeah, I don't know if it shows up in your agenda package very well if you can see, but there's the diagram from the surveyor, which is the last diagram on the subdivision in the package. And it shows, if you can see it, the existing dotted line that runs, so it's very close to the wall of the residence, and you can see that that line is being moved over to the west a little bit. I don't know if you can see that on your packager or on their screen very well, but there's a dotted line there just on the very west side of the dwelling wall. They're just showing the west side of the dark line there, and you can see that how it's moved over to the west. I don't know if you can see that.
So if I look at this correctly, then that house is actually built into the other guy's property?
No, it was built solely on its property. It was just closer to the property line.
Well, that dotted line goes right through the house.
Nope, not quite. It's just to the
If I
east.
may,
Yeah, go ahead, John.
if you look at the photograph where the proposed lots are put on, you can see actually the location of where the old house was. 'Cause the old house is actually in that photograph. And yeah, and if you overlay the lot plan, it is moving it over just slightly to the west. So it is giving a little bit more of a setback from where the existing house was built, or the one that's there now, sorry.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, there's two dotted lines there. There's one like point lines, and it has the distance on there, the 50.03, which is the meters from
Sorry to interrupt,
the.
but can you tell us which page you're looking at, because it's not clear. What
It's
page you're looking at?
Page
No,
9
that's
of
the
9.
wrong one.
It's the last page of this.
9 of 9?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
This one there?
Yeah, okay. Just, I don't see two dotted lines, I see one.
No, the dash.
Not show up very well.
Everybody got it?
One dotted line on that sheet, so I'm not sure why you're referring to two dotted lines. There's one. Okay.
Okay, Steve, go ahead.
You can see if you pull it up.
Yeah, it'd be helpful if it was up there so we could know what we're all talking about, looking at the same.
I don't know if the agenda was put up here, Candace. Thanks, Candace. So what Mr. Hardy was referring to is these two dotted lines. There's the dashed line. That-
Sorry,
the-
where's your hand, Hillary? I can't see. Or
The,
your
uh,
little mouse, can you, okay, oh, that.
This
dotted
is a
line,
dashed
gotcha.
line that shows the former property line,
Got you.
or the
Okay.
existing property line, excuse
Yeah.
me. And then the dotted line shows the actual setback lines to the proposed setback. So they would be increasing their setback from the property line from approximate to 11.57 meters versus what it was at the dash line, which just guesstimating would have been around, say, 2.5 meters.
Thank you.
Okay. Everybody clear on that? Eric?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think that in all reality, whether they gain or don't gain, that's not for us to decide. It's as the planner has said, it does fit within the subdivision bylaws. So with that, I'd like to move the recommendation that subdivision application 2022-0-081 be approved, subject to the conditions as outlined in the draft resolution.
Okay, thank you, Eric. Eric made the move that the application be approved, subject to the conditions of the outlined draft resolution. Everybody in favor? That's carried.
You didn't answer John, or mine.
Oh, sorry. John?
Yeah, I had my hand
Okay, thank you. So that's carried. All right, then we'll move on to the next subdivision application, 2022-0-090 Ramias.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this last subdivision for today is, you may recognize this from the rezoning and area structure plan that were just approved by County Council in the May meeting of this year. First meeting in May of this year. So this application is to create 2 new titles out of a existing 9.9 acre title, and it would be for country residential use. So the size of the titles would be 2.55 acres, 2.79 acres, and then the existing residence that's on there, their title would be 4.46 acres in size, all for country residential use. This particular parcel is just to the north of the town of Colehurst, and in the area that we have the intermunicipal development plan with the town. This proposed subdivision does meet the criteria of the land use bylaw, and it also meets the criteria of the intermunicipal development plan with the town of Colehurst, as the area structure plan was approved and the rezoning was approved for country residential purposes. With that, I will pass it on to Steve for the planning comments and the recommendation.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, this next application in front of you is to create 2 additional titles on a parcel of less than 20 acres of poor quality agricultural land that was rezoned to group country residential use. The part of the proposal involves creating a 2.79 acre easterly lot. That lot presently area contains a dugout and some agricultural buildings on there, while the middle 2.55 acre lot is vacant. There'll be a remnant westerly lot at 4.64 acres, which contains an existing yard with a dwelling of the applicants. The proposed property line between the remnant title and the middle new lot is angled slightly on the northwest corner to account for a drainage swale and berm and culvert that allows drainage from the north side of the road to drain south as part of the natural channel. That was an item that was addressed in the amended area structure plan that was presented to council and approved. As part of this application, the stormwater management plan was also provided in the area structure plan. And the servicing as well was addressed in the ASP, which include the soils analysis for these lots was prepared at the area structure plan and included in that report. The access to these lots is granted from the north side from Township Road 9-4, which we know as Kip Road, and there are already 3 existing approaches in place. As part of the subdivision itself, there's no abandoned gas wells located in proximity of this proposal. There's no identified historical resource as well. In some of the area around Colehurst, there are some parcels that are flagged for previous underground mining activity that we have to pay attention to, and there's some policies in the IDP that pertain to that as well. This particular area and parcel is not affected by that. So this application was part of the, the council did approve the area structure plan and the rezoning, which was in support of this application. The application in front of you does conform to the area structure plan, which was bylaw number 21-020 that was approved. There's been no changes or alterations made from the area structure plan that was presented to council. In the subdivision itself, the lot size exceed the minimum 2 acre size of your bylaw. As Hilary mentioned, this is within the IDP area with the town of Colehurst. That IDP plan did allow for this area to be subdivided. It was identified as a historic fragmented area, and provided that an area structure plan was prepared and acceptable to the county, which the applicant has gone through that process. As part of the circulation and referral process of this application, it was sent to the town of Colehurst. The town of Colehurst has not responded to the circulation, so we have no comments back from them on that. But it is determined to align with the policies of the IDP. So on that basis, there was no objections or received on the proposal. None of the utility agencies require any easements at this point to be registered. The provision of municipal reserves not applicable on this. It has been previously paid in the past for this area. And it can only be paid one time, so the municipal reserve is not applicable. So on the basis of it conforming to the group country residential land use and subdivision policies of the land use bylaw, as well with the area structure plan that was adopted by council, I have recommended an approval to you. And in this case, it would be the 4 conditions that are in front of you on the draft resolution. And that would be that the taxes are paid at up to date, that a development agreement be entered into with the county, that the final plan of survey be provided, and the 4th is that the applicant's responsible for obtaining and submitting a copy of an approval by Alberta Environment under the Water Act for the stormwater management plant, and that's in place prior to final endorsement of the subdivision. So those would be the recommended 4 conditions.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Are there any questions from council? Mark?
I would move that the subdivision application 2022-0-090 be approved, subject to the conditions as outlined in the draft resolution.
Okay, thank you for that, Mark. Mark has just moved that to the application outlined in the draft resolution. Any questions? If not, everybody in favor? That's carried. Okay, then we'll move down to the F, the department reports, and we'll start with community services. And okay. And who's gonna take this? Hillary, are you gonna continue on with this one?
I am.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this first, this report is for Bylaw 22-011, and it is the road closure, sale, and consolidation of Road Plan 8419HB, and it's for first reading of this particular bylaw. Council may find this application fairly familiar, as I had just previously brought it to the last council meeting. There was a after looking at submitting the documents to the surveyor, it was determined that this portion of road actually could not be closed by resolution. It had to be closed by bylaw, just in the way it was created. It was created by a subdivision, and thus it had to be it has to be closed by bylaw, as per the Municipal Government Act. So with that, this application is to has been received to close and consolidate this portion of road. The road in question has been an undeveloped road right-of-way, and upon review, county administration determined that this part of the road network is not required in any way for future county use. Alberta Transportation was circulated the proposed road closure, and they had no concerns with proceeding with the closure, sale, and consolidation. If this was approved, the applicant would be required to consolidate the portion of road into their adjacent title, which is located directly to the east. To the west. It is anticipated that we would have a public hearing for this road closure in the first meeting in August. And if you can go through your agenda package, you'll notice I have the detailed plan of the road closure area on page 5 of this particular report that shows the actual road location. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I will turn it back to you.
Okay, thank you, Hillary. Are there any questions of council?
I don't have a question, but I would like to move that the bylaw 22-011 be read for the first time.
Okay, John moved that bylaw 22-011, be read for the first time. Any more questions? Everybody in favor? That's carried. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Pardon me?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Hillary. And then we'll move on to F1.2, and that is donation request from the Green and Yellow Group. And Larry will introduce that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I just wanted to say in a public meeting to congratulations to Larry because he completed his professional registered parliamentarian, which was quite a grueling achievement. So congratulations, Larry.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. So,
Congratulations, Larry.
thank you very much, Councillor Kurbis. Appreciate that. Thank you. Donation request from the Green and Yellow Group. A short report before you. The county has received a $500 donation request from this group in support of their July 20th to 24th fundraising event. This year, they are raising funds to support the Chinook Autism Society and Bridges of Hope, which is an international network of development agencies that helps to reduce poverty. Our recommendation today, Council, is that their request for $500 donation be supported. And the reasons are that this summer's festival and fundraising event put on by this Green and Yellow Group align with the general content and intent of the county's donation policy. We do have a 2014 donation policy that's been in place for a number of years and surprisingly isn't utilized all that much, honestly, but today, as noted, we do have one request before you. So they are requesting this money for this event, which is going to actually be held in the MD of Willow Creek, just on the west side of the Old Man River across the Highway 3 bridge, somewhere down in that area. Initially, they came to us believing that the location, I think they just had a legal description, was located in Lethbridge County. So when I was doing a little bit of research on this, I was kind of struggling to find the location. I went to our expert in-house supervisor of planning and development, kind of scratching my head to ask, am I missing something here or where is this? And she was helpful and got me straightened out, and indeed it is not located in Lethbridge County. The monies raised by this particular event will be used to help support people with disabilities and increase resilience and help reduce vulnerability to poverty. If the grant is, or the donation is provided, the group will acknowledge the county's contribution and provide 4 tickets to the event as well. There's a number of attachments with the report that kind of explains in further detail exactly what they do and what they're looking to achieve at this year's event. Our alternatives that we're presenting to council are simply to provide the $500 donation. We believe that aligns with the county's donation policy and that it aligns with our relationships pillar in the county's strategic plan. Obviously, if granted, the donation reserve would be reduced by $500. Another option, of course, is to not provide the grant or the donation, and that would maintain the current balance in the donations reserve. However, as noted, we believe that it fits the intent and content of what is in the donations policy. The current amount in the donations reserve is $1,500, so obviously that would be reduced to $500 if this grant is provided by council today. And with that, I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Larry.
You're welcome.
So, are there any questions of council? Lauren?
Thank you. I have never heard of these guys, so I'm very unfamiliar with them.
Yeah, if I may, Mr. Chairman, through to Councillor Hickey, in all honesty, I had not either. I did Google their ad, and spot on the website, and they do exist, and I spoke with one of the individuals as well, requesting the donation. It looks like, from everything I can tell, it's a valid and legitimate group that raises funds in a charitable manner for good causes, and I don't know what else I can say about that. Like I say, I did do a little bit of research, though, in an attempt to just kind of ensure the legitimacy and validity of the group and what they're looking to achieve. And it appears to be fair and valid.
Another question I got for you is, Willow Creek, are they giving donations to that? Because did they, by mistake, get into the Lethbridge County and are not asking them for a donation, or are you not aware of that?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the question. I'm not aware whether they have asked the MD of Willow Creek for support as well. I would like to assume they would, especially given that it is located in Willow Creek and not in Lethbridge County, but I'm not certain.
Okay, Ann?
Larry, question, did we advise them that it was in Willow Creek? Are they aware that it's not in Lethbridge County?
Yes, indeed, they
Okay.
definitely are aware.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions of council?
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead, John.
I was just looking up their Facebook page, and it says the Green and Yellow Group are an ad agency providing marketing and advertising with an international reach, which looks to help bring unity in the community. So I'm just wondering about whether this is an actual charity group and whether they're registered as such, or whether this is a private venture that maybe doing some fundraising for outside events. But I think that that's an important distinction we need to look at before we decide whether we're going to give them money.
Okay, Larry, can you respond to that?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, through to Councillor Kurbis. I don't have any further detail. I didn't go, that deeply into it. I reviewed their application, like I say, went to the website, found evidence that they are a legitimate group working for good charitable causes. In our donations policy, it talks about a need for financial support from the county. Obviously they're requesting that, and there appears to be a need. Events that are held for the enjoyment and benefit of the general public. It is definitely an event that is open to the public, and it meets that criteria. Hosted on a yearly basis and recognize significant milestones or events. This is apparently the 6th consecutive year they've held this event. And one other possible criteria is that it take place within the county boundaries. The policy isn't specific that it must, just says that is one of the conditions whereby a donation could be considered by council for that, and they do meet that. And then as well, there are further criteria, just evidence for the need, number of local residents served. Obviously, it would appear they spread their goodwill, beyond just Lethbridge County, kind of on a more regional, in some cases an international basis. Quality of the management, an established track record, number of local volunteers, they have that. Mitigation of barriers to services for people with mental and physical disabilities and minority groups. I think, again, that box could be checked. But as far as, checking into their registration number as a charitable organization and so on, I did not go that far.
Okay, Ann?
I just agree with Councillor Kurbis that I don't really think we have enough information on this, and because we normally use the donation policy, it's been our practice to deal with charities that affect us in the county, that either I would recommend that we get more information or just look at maybe not supporting this, because I think it's almost too vague and broad of an organization. That's my opinion.
And I think when Larry read that, the stipulation that it should, that we actually only do it what is going on in the county of Lethbridge. And I think that would probably give us reasons enough to kind of question a donation like this. Anybody else want to have any questions or speak up about this one? Morris?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, no, the thing is, it seems to be too much unknowns about this organization. I'm not knocking the organization, but the other one is, it is not gonna be held in a county, and I think that's a good point. If it is not in a county, maybe we should really look at it, if we should donate or not.
Okay, thank you, Morris. Anybody willing to move either way?
I'd like to make a motion that the county not consider the donation request for Green and Yellow Group at this time.
Okay, thank you, John. John moved that we do not, recommends that we do not give a donation to this Green and Yellow group. Any questions? Not? Everybody in favor?
Sorry, I have one more question. Procedurally, can I make a motion in that regard? Or should it be a positive?
As far as I know, we can also make motions in the negative. Is that correct, Larry?
It is, if it serves a purpose and achieves a goal. I think in this case it would. If there was a motion made in the affirmative and then it was defeated, that maybe is more clear. But I think either way, in this case today, it will be clear that one way or the other, however it's done procedurally, Lethbridge County Council has chosen not to make the donation today. So I think it's fine as it is today.
Okay, thank you, Larry.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So did we're done? We already voted again, so we're good.
We're good.
Okay, then we'll move on to F 1.3, and that is the Monarch grain handling facility complaint. And is Larry, are you going to take this one too?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. So attached in your agenda packages and adhered to the short report to council is a letter from some residents in Monarch who are very frustrated by the operations of the very nearby More Than Just Feed grain handling facility. And they are asking for the county to address their problem. I trust you've had the opportunity to read their letter. Our recommendation today, Mr. Chairman, out of this is that staff meet once again with the management of More Than Just Feeds near Monarch to discuss long-term solutions to the problems they are creating for Monarch residents, and as well to send a letter signed by the Reeve to the writers of the letter who have submitted this letter, explaining that the county will continue to work toward feasible solutions toward their concerns. Reasons for the recommendation: obviously we need strong, respectful dialogue and communication between all affected parties and all stakeholders here to work together to try to mitigate the problems and implement feasible solutions. I think we need as well within this to recognize the fact there are rights of the residents, but at the same time rights of the business. Just a very brief history, Mr. Chairman and Council. Back in 2002, there was a subdivision in this area that subdivided off the larger parcel. There's an attached map to the report that shows that area. And since that time, in the early 2000s, there were several development permits as the business kind of grew and evolved. In 2020, council approved a rezoning application for the property that changed it from rural urban fringe zoning to rural general industrial. There was a public hearing, of course, for that. In 2021, there was yet another development permit that was issued for the site, which allowed some additional storage bins to be added. Just historically speaking, as a result of these various approvals that have occurred on this property over the past 2 decades, the business has evolved into what it is today, and that's a very kind of thriving and robust agricultural related business. Unfortunately, it's in a location where its operations are very close to the residences in the hamlet of Monarch and are creating these negative issues for the residents. Our thought is that yes, there's quite a long history to all this, but we can't change history now, and we need to kind of look forward to try to find some solutions that will hopefully satisfy, again, stakeholders to a reasonable level. I think this is one of those very difficult situations whereby there is likely no ideal solution that will satisfy completely either the business or the residents. We've dealt with this issue in an ongoing manner a number of times over the past several years and had multiple discussions, spent lots of time on it trying to kind of mitigate the issues, and there has been some mitigation work done, but maybe there's some more solutions we can find. As a rail siding in southern Alberta, I think I'm preaching to the choir, and you would all know more about it than I probably would, but this siding was actually established about 100 years ago, the early 1900s, and in fact is part of the reason, or the primary reason, why the hamlet of Monarch ultimately became a settlement. I suppose at that point nobody recognized, the evolution of things, how land use patterns evolve and be in the situation we are in today. Our alternatives here, again, we've just identified that I think as administration we need to go back to the More Than Just Feeds management and have frank conversation with them and look at attempting to find some additional mitigation matters, procedures that they could use to reduce dust, noise, and disturbance on the residences, and let the residences know that we're, recognize the hardship that they're facing and the frustration they're facing, but again, at the same time, trying to find that fine line, that balancing act between the rights of the citizens, the rights of the business, and do our best to make everyone happy. I'm not sure what the perfect solution might be.
So I remember that probably a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, it was in the COVID time, and we had him on Zoom, the manager of the Just for Feed. And we had some good explanations there of what had happened. And I guess in the past it was a hammer mill that was hammering inside of the train carts, and that was making tremendous amount of noise. They have, in time, they have improved that. They don't do that anymore. They have a different way of doing that. And my other question would be to you, are these the only people that object to what is going on there, or was it more? Because I only seen a signature of one couple.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman, and a very good point. And I was careful in the report just to say that it was residents of Monarch. And you're right. I mean, it's not like a petition with 10 or a number of signatures. I'll maybe ask, if I may, to our Supervisor of Planning and Development. I'm not aware of other complaints, but there may have been, and she may have a better idea of a little bit more detail of the history.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman and Council. So with regards to complaints for this particular property, over, I would say, since More Than Just Feed kind of arrived on the site, I think 4-ish years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, there's been complaints from, I would say, 2 or 3 landowners that live right along Railway Avenue there in Monarch. The Tollefsons are one, and then there is another couple, or another person who lives just down the road from them, who has also issued complaints. But other than that, there have been no other complaints from any of the other residents along Railway Avenue. You may recall when we did the rezoning application, at that point in time, there was a petition that was submitted with a number of residents on it, from the hamlet at large, more so. But since that time, and even before that time, the complaints have been just kind of isolated to a couple of residents that have called into the county, at least.
Any more questions from council? Lauren?
Just a question, when you bring back the report to us, could you tell us the difference between the first business that was in and Everything Feeds and More, or whatever they're called now? More Than Just Feeds? Like, these guys have a very much expanded business, or, you can bring back in the report, I'm just asking that. And are they under the same guidelines we had before, because they had hours which they operated in, and I believe they put up a fence to keep down the dust.
They put up trees.
Didn't they put up a wind fence too for a while?
No.
Oh.
Yeah. No answer here? Okay, then we'll go to Mark.
Just a question, when this development was first approved, was it like this was the business they were applying for, and we gave them a permit for that? Have they expanded outside of that, and is that what this issue is? Because my understanding, talking to residents in Monarch, there's a lot of people that are upset with this. It's the dust, it's the smell. And this has been since they expanded or they've done something to their business. So that would be my question, is if they're operating outside of what they were approved for, then that's when we as a county can step in. And it sounds like there's been several discussions with the business, and I mean, we don't want to chase business away, but I mean, we've got to be respectful of those residents. They were there a long time before, probably when the siding was first put in. So they started it before this came along. So I can understand that, and maybe when when the county approved that facility or that location, didn't realize the potential, some of the issues. But at that point, if it was just, this is what they're doing, it's inside the structure, it's not an issue. But all this other dust and smell has come since that, is my sort of understanding, so.
Go ahead.
If I may, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
So with regards to, so the business before was called Country Commodities. That started in 1999, I think, is when they actually started there. And then, as Larry mentioned in their report, they kind of got their subdivisions done in 2002. Same type of facility that More Than Just Feed is that they were they handled product coming in and transporting it, feed type product. So the use really hasn't changed. We did have them rezone just because there was a change in the land use bylaw from 2002 to 2018 when these people moved in, that they had to rezone to expand, which is what County Council approved in 2020. And so the application that stands today, or the use that stands today, complies 100% with the land use bylaw, and they comply with their development permits that they've been issued.
So, just to follow, so before when it was Country Commodities, it was a transfer of product, but now is it a process, or are these people processing a product that they're bringing in now? Because that would be different than what, they're not?
Mr. Chairman, to my understanding, no, they are not
Okay.
processing, they're still doing the same like transloading type
Okay.
operation for feed.
Eric?
I have a quick question, if I could.
Okay, go ahead, John.
As soon as I get my voice back, sorry. Just in regards to, and it's sort of feeding on what Mr. Chair Closet had indicated, what we're seeing here is a complaint from one resident, and I understand that there has been some complaints in the past, but appreciating that there's been some back and forth with this operation to try to mitigate some of the concerns of the residents. Since that last conversation, has there been further complaints other than just this one individual?
That question was just answered, John. That this, as far as I know, this was the only complaint right now.
Oh, okay, I apologize, I didn't get that from the conversation. I thought that there was some further complaints that may have been in, but it seems like there is a long history with these individuals in the business, which is an unfortunate situation.
Okay, thanks, John, for that. Eric?
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There's a general pushback, and I've seen it in other communities, when a business goes from being calm to operating at right to their potential. Country Commodities, from what I understand, they slowed down to a halt, and there was some rest for some time, and now we have an operator that is trying to maximize the potential, and that is that's they're not enjoying the level of enjoyment that they had for those rest years. However, it is still within the scope of what they requested. I do have a property on Railway, right up there. I've asked the tenants there what their things. They're like, we have just as much from trains coming by as from the operations that are going on there. I also see in our report that the operators have worked to mitigate. They installed a machine over the tracks to assist in getting the product out of the rail car so they will not have to use a jackhammer. That is a significant expense. We're talking an excavator, structure, engineered structure to handle it over the property. I cannot estimate what it is, but that's a big deal. They've put a lot of money into mitigating concerns already, and let's recognize that they have tried. Also, we have a very similar, or not we, but there's a very similar facility in Coaldale, Five Sons. They are unloading rail cars, DDGs, and corn right in town. And they've been allowed to continue to operate. It appears to some extent allowed to expand, and it is working. So I believe that there's a lot of room to make this work and allow it to continue, and support the business. As for byproducts of it, yeah, I think it's all right to engage in communication, both sides, but as long as they're operating within what their application was, I'm definitely prepared to support them to continue in that manner.
Any other questions of council? So,
I have another comment.
go ahead.
I have a very hard time trying to wrap my head around and rationalize us taking some further steps with a viable business that expressing concerns just because we're dealing with one resident just seems to be a little heavy-handed on my part, in my understanding of the situation.
Okay, thank you for that, John. So, seeing what is happening here, and in the past that they have come to council and they have abided by, what we have asked for. They have improved their facilities tremendously there. It's only when there's a north wind that some of the dust does blow that way. But other than that, there's never, like with the other different winds or whatever, there's never anything going into the area of town. And I think we live in southern Alberta, and when the wind blows, we have the dust blowing in our town too. And, it's really hard to control the weather with everything. So I don't know. I don't feel that a letter is justified from us coming now while they have accommodated us with everything they have done. So in my opinion, I don't think that we have to act on this because of one individual that is not happy with that.
Sorry. The recommendation isn't that the Reeve sends a letter to the company. It's just to send a letter to the resident explaining that, what's happening. But it was just a suggestion that maybe staff just talks again, just meets with more than feed. And it'd probably be good from a communication standpoint for them to hear that there's been a complaint come to us. So it's not we're going after them, we're not holding their feet to the fire. We're just saying we had a complaint come in and this is how we've dealt with it. Just so you're aware too, that there's still some concerns about the dust. That's it. We're not getting into it with them. It's just keeping that line of communication between the county and that business open. So we're not sending, the Reeve's not sending them a letter getting upset with them. It's the letter that the Reeve is being requested to send is just to that resident who wrote us a letter explaining the process.
Yeah, that's
just to be clear.
That's
Okay.
fine. So if somebody would like to make a move that a letter being sent to the resident, that we have heard him, and that what else Larry, can you help me out now?
Sure.
Two recommendations.
Yeah, just the recommendation there, I think captured what
Yeah.
Councillor Sayers said, in just that, and when we often do this in these types of situations where maybe there's a complaint and yet it's not breaking any bylaw or particular rule that we can identify, we just have a friendly chat. Hey, how are you doing? Hope things are going well. Just wanted you to know, this is what we're hearing. So, if there are any steps you can take to, soften the impact on surrounding properties, that obviously will go a long way to good neighbor relations and that sort of thing. So a very gentle approach, no enforcement at all. So just a chat like that is what we had talked about and suggested. And then a formal letter from the Reeve to the writer of the letter acknowledging.
Yes, but I think we were going to go we were going to go the other route. We were only going to send a letter to the person that complained, explaining that we have heard that,
Yes.
but not to the person from Just for Feeds.
There's never a suggestion in any of this to send a letter to the company.
No.
That's just what I want to clarify, because
Okay.
when you keep referring to that, that's not what's here in front of us.
Mhm.
So did you want would you like me to make a motion?
Sure.
So, thanks. So I would move that two things. First, that staff meet with the management of More Than Just for Feeds near Monarch, just to discuss the long-term solutions to the problems they are creating for the Monarch residents based on the letter we received. And secondly, to send a letter signed by the Reeve to the resident in Monarch who wrote this letter to council, explaining that council will continue to work toward feasible solutions to their concerns.
Everybody okay with that motion, or? Well, we'll see. So everybody in favor of this motion? Or is it not clear enough?
Is there any other discussion?
Yeah? Okay.
I guess just, I'm not quite clear of the letter. Is it indicating we're going to be talking to Just for Feeds, or I'm kind of a little lost on what you meant by that?
Okay, Ann?
I just think the letter is, because if we get formal correspondence from residents that we, to address to council, we want to make sure that we respond to it. So I think the letter, my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, Larry, the intent of the letter is just to say, we've heard your concerns, we've brought them forward to council, and we've had a discussion.
Okay, and it's just going to the resident then?
Yes.
Okay, yes. Is that clear? Go
Can
ahead.
I interject?
I got Eric here first.
So the recommendation that is on the table right now is also that staff is meeting with the management, and I can't support that. I would think a phone call at best would just make them aware, we've dealt with it.
I think you misunderstood here. I don't think we were gonna send anything to Just for Feeds. Yeah, that's here, but Mark made a different one. You were,
Read what was off.
yeah.
Just to meet, that could be a phone call, just to meet or discuss. Sure, yeah, no, that's fine, I appreciate that.
Okay, John?
Yeah, just to sort of feed off what Eric was saying there, the motion on the table was that the staff meet with the management of Morton Feeds near Monarch. I cannot support that. I would be in support of just sending a letter to the residents saying that we've heard their concerns and we will continue to work to make sure that it's as harmonious as possible. But I could not support the staff meeting with More Than Feeds. I think More Than Feeds, from what we've seen here, is doing everything in their power to stay within the confines of their operations and to be a respectful member of society. So.
Okay, thank you, John. Ann?
Just for clarification, Councillor Kurbis, I think that really with staff meeting with these individuals, it wasn't any intent for us to ask for more from them. Councillor Van Essen made some really good points. They're working inside of their confines and they're working to their capacity. Business and residents need to work together harmoniously. I think we can do a better job kind of getting more information about that to the public. But I think what the intent was, Councillor Kurbis, was just for us to bring the business up to speed, that we've had some concerns, we've dealt with them, so that everybody is communicating. That's, I think, what the intent was, not to ask for anything, just to highlight what's happening and to tell how we've been working with it.
Okay, and I appreciate that, but the recommendation is, the way it's worded, in my mind, says near Monarch to discuss long-term solutions to the problems they are creating for Monarch residents.
I agree, it's not worded very well. You're right.
Yeah, the tone of that seems to be a little heavy-handed.
So, Candace, can you read the motion?
It's on your paper.
No, I think we changed it a little bit, didn't we? Okay.
I don't think we can.
No, I can amend the motion. So,
Yeah, it's a friendly amendment.
I would,
yes, you
I would
can.
just amend the first recommendation to say that the staff will meet with the management of More Than Feeds near Monarch, period. And just take off that last sentence. Is that
Lauren,
okay?
you had something to it?
Well, I guess you're not gonna talk to the resident at all who sent the complaint? You're not gonna tell them it was brought to count? Well, I'm not hearing that.
The letter, that's the second part of the motion. The second part was to send a letter signed by the Reeve to the resident in Monarch who wrote the letter to council,
Okay.
explaining that the county will continue to work toward feasible solutions to their concerns.
So
That's the
I
second.
guess to that point, have you ever had a site visit to this facility lately?
Yes,
Do
I
you-
was there about a month ago.
And do they fall within their parameters of?
From what I could see, there was nothing unusual about their operations, Mr. Chairman.
Okay,
Well,
with that
again-
said, and I kind of don't think it's necessary that we contact Just for Feeds, because I don't think they have to hear about this. This was just a complaint to council, just from the resident, and I don't think that we have to approach Just for Feeds at all about this. Go ahead.
I disagree, and the reason why is just to bring them up to date, because I'm sure that with social media and everything, that they're quite aware that this is coming to council. So I just think, from our perspective, to close the loop, just to let them know what's happening and that it has been brought to council and it has been dealt with. It's my opinion.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
Morris,
agree with
just a minute, John. We got Morris here.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, like, this thing has been an issue for some time, and I think when we worked with the company down there, was running the business down there, one of them, major one, was that he agreed to better hours of the day, because at one time they would almost go 24/7, you know, and that I can see was a little nuisance to the residents down there. So I think the operating just from 7 till,
I think it was 7 till 7.
yeah, something like that. And so that was quite an improvement already. They put up that facility down there to, and the trees down there, you know, to somewhat stop the blowing of the dust down there, you know. So they did a lot of improvements down there. And I'm 100% with the company down there. I think they did everything possible. And that's as simple as that.
Okay. Okay, John?
I think that would, sorry, I apologize, I think it's been covered off with Morris. I was just going to basically say that I'm in favor of actually communicating with more than fees and let them know that there was something addressed. I'm not in favor with you know, administration dealing with it from the standpoint of, you know, there may be an enforcement action. So I would agree with Ann that there has to be communication with more than fees, just to kind of keep them in the loop as to what's been going on at that only.
Okay. Mark?
So that's been reflected in the motion. So the motion right now, as I understand it, is that the staff recommendations two. One is that the staff meet with the management of more than feeds, and recommendation two, or motion, is send a letter signed by the Reeve to the resident monarch who wrote the letter council, explaining that the county will continue to work toward feasible solutions to their concerns. So that's the motion on the floor.
And before we do the motion, and I just want to explain to council too, before we vote on this motion, that we are very conscious that we will explain to the residents that this business is working within their parameters and that they have been very accommodating, so that perhaps we can mitigate some of the issues there.
Go ahead.
I would like to see that in a motion then, you know, that the company is doing everything possible. You know, there's only so much they can do. They're doing everything possible to make sure that it is tolerable to a certain extent to the residents down here.
I'd like to just keep the motion the way it is, to keep it clean and simple, and we stay out of the weeds. Let's address this, and we can discuss that later.
Okay. Any more discussion on the motion? If not, everybody in favor of this motion? Against?
Myself,
John's for.
Okay. So that was 3-2, so that's carried. Okay, thank you very much. Shall we take I see the people of the city are there. Shall we take a little break first, or 5 minutes? Okay.
Thank you, council.
to order again. Aye.
Hey.
In front of us, we have the City of Lethbridge, Jenn Schmidt-Rempel, Deputy Reeve, and we have Sandra Dufresne.
Dufresne, yes.
Yeah, and Intergovernmental Advocacy Advisor Carly Kleisinger, and Chief to the Staff of the City Manager. There, I got it done. So I'd like to start with introducing us a minute here. Then you know what it is. And we'll start with Morris there.
Morris Easter, long ways away from the city of Lethbridge. I live in the northern and northeast part of the county, Division 7. Big visit for Lethbridge.
Eric Van Essen, Division 5, Monarch area north.
Klaus Vanderveen, I represent Division 6.
Mark Sears, Division 3, and I'm the Lethbridge.
And our Reeve couldn't be here today because he's at a wedding, and we have John on team, and he is, John, just introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi, I'm John Curvis. I'm the counselor for Division 4, which is just to the west of Lethbridge.
Okay, well, thank you and welcome, and maybe if you want to have a little introduction for yourselves and before
Sure.
you go on. Okay,
Yep.
Go ahead.
Yep. Is that's on? Okay. So good morning, and thank you very much for having us here today. As Councillor Vander said, I'm Lethbridge City Council Deputy Mayor Jenn Schmidt-Rempel, and with me today is Carly Kleisinger, our Chief of Staff to Lethbridge's City Manager, as well as Sandra Dufresne, City of Lethbridge Intergovernmental and Advocacy Advisor, both of whom are working on our family physician shortage file. We know that municipalities have a role to play in physician recruitment, and we are excited to be here today to summarize what we've been working on, as well as share an opportunity with yourselves. So, there we go. All right. So the City of Lethbridge currently has approximately 40,000 residents who are unattached to a primary care physician. Lethbridge County currently has 2 family physicians, Picture Butte, and 2 family physicians in Picture Butte and 9 in Coaldale, with a number who are set to retire. Approximately 40% of residents are unattached to a primary care physician. We recognize that we are in this challenge together. We know that county residents need to leave their communities to access primary care. We also know that sometimes City of Lethbridge residents need to head up to Calgary or Edmonton when we're looking at specialist consultation. So we do experience those strains on the system as well as those challenges together. And this does strain an already strained system. We know that your residents, just like us, we want to stay in our communities to get the treatments that we need. And this is a South Zone problem requiring a South Zone solution.
So the City of Lethbridge has been working on this strategy for more than a year now, working with a number of community partners that we'll talk a little bit about later in the presentation. But what the early work has culminated in is a Lethbridge City Council Family Physician Action Plan, which our City Council approved in May of this year. And that action plan is built on 4 pillars of work: coordinating, advocacy, marketing, and partnerships. And we'll touch on each of those briefly here today. So the first is coordinating. Some of the work that falls on this category is hosting and facilitating meetings amongst the partners, as well as doing the necessary research that's needed to find solutions, connecting with other municipalities who are facing similar problems to find what the best solutions are to move forward. And of course, searching out and connecting with potential new partners, which is what we're doing here today. The advocacy work that we do takes on a number of forms. The first being letter writing. So Mayor Blaine Higgin has written a number of letters to both the Premier and the Health Minister, elevating this issue to various levels of government. So as you well know, the advocacy work is positioned in working with other levels of government.
Some of the letters that we've already written are for a cardiac catheterization lab, which would serve our region extremely well and reduce strain in Calgary. We've also written letters regarding an academic family medicine clinic. And we know from our partners at AHS that that will be a draw for physicians to choose Lethbridge an area to be in. Finally, ministerial meetings. So we not only take advantage of meetings that come to our, that are open to us, but we find those meetings, we bring the ministers, and we meet with them. And we take every opportunity to connect with both elected and non-elected levels of the provincial government to talk about the challenges that we're facing. And for example, members of your council have attended those same community meetings that we've been at. And it's important to always have a presence there. So that is what the work we're doing in advocacy.
So the City of Lethbridge sees a primary focus of our work being selling our community as well as our area and what we can offer physicians and their families in way of excellent quality of life. We have done that by developing an advocacy video, which we'll be showing you here in a few minutes. We've built a dedicated website. We've leveraged community partners to help amplify our message. So you'll see behind me that we have CEO from Economic Development Lethbridge. They've been key in our partnerships. And through a targeted social media recruitment campaign that we're in the process of designing. So that will be coming out shortly as well. And I'm just, is the video coming up? Oh, yep.
Is that it?
Yep. Oh. Come on. There we go.
This is a story that started by a river, nestled in the prairies, at the foot of the mountains. In this place grew a city that from its beginning had an eye towards the future. Today, Lethbridge has grown into something better. A gateway to opportunity. A place that's learning, adapting. A place where athletes are forged and artists flourish. A place where
Oki means hello.
This is a story of a city built around balance between industry and community. Arts and science, work and play. Lethbridge is far from the noise, but close to the action. This is a story of resilience. A city reconciling with its past to meet the challenge of the future. This is the story of a city by the river. One whose best chapters are not behind, but ahead. Come be a part of it.
So we're looking to collaborate on this work with both private and public partners. We know new medical grads want to work in a business model that affords them better work-life balance than those of a generation ago. This means we're looking at supporting models that allow doctors to be doctors and not necessarily business owners. That's some of the feedback we're getting from new grads. We're also looking at incentives that may entice doctors to come and stay in Lethbridge and our area.
So I want to share a little bit about the work and the investment that the City of Lethbridge has made into this strategy. As our Deputy Mayor shared earlier, we see a role for our municipality to play in this work, but a role that makes sense for them. And that is in showcasing and promoting our city as a place for physicians to live and work. So some of the contributions we've made include a video and the dedicated webpage, also marketing collaterals, as well as in May, City Council dedicated $15,000 from council contingencies to support an advertising campaign. That's in addition to the $10,000 they provided last August for the video. So that might leave you with the question, what brings us here today? We know that the success that we've had to date has come from partners and working together to find a regional solution to a regional problem.
As part of this is asking yourselves, Lethbridge County, to consider joining us to help solve this regional problem. We'd like you to join the following partners who are all committed to helping recruit more primary care physicians to our area. Partners include City of Lethbridge, Alberta Health Services South Zone, Chinook Primary Care Network, Economic Development Lethbridge, and we have some other interested community partners that we're working with right now. We're asking you as a county to commit $15,000 that can be used towards meeting the unique needs of the residents of Lethbridge County. As the City of Lethbridge has done, your commitment remains in your control and to be used how you want. The City of Lethbridge is happy to work with you to share strategies, information, resources, and collateral to ensure the success of overcoming this challenge we're seeing in Southern Alberta. A public commitment from yourselves of financial resources sends a strong message to current and future partners of the need and urgency in finding a solution, and it shows your residents that this issue matters to County Council. Thank you very much, and we are happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, thank you very much for the presentation, and turn to council and see what kind of questions you have. Lauren?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just a couple of questions that come to my mind. You talked about an academic family medical clinic. Is that like a teaching clinic, or what exactly do you mean? Like
Yeah.
the Hague Clinic kind of does that now?
And this would be a more expanded clinic. So we have a group of doctors that are interested in opening up a teaching clinic. We also know that the University of Lethbridge is working with other institutions throughout Alberta to look at how we can partner with them as well. So this would be a much larger and much more expanded kind of teaching clinic that would see, we would hope, doctor students coming down from Calgary or Edmonton.
Okay, and my other question was, for a long time at Mayors and Reeves, there's always been a push to for recruitment for doctors for rural areas. So there have been a lot of incentives put forward by, like, I'm going to use Milk River for an example. They actually bought houses and let the doctors have the houses. Some doctors stayed for a couple of years, some only stayed for 6 months. So you got any idea of what you might be looking at for kind of a recruitment or an incentive to come here? Has that kind of been discussed or not?
So that's something we're negotiating with grad doctors who might be interested in coming here. So we're taking each of those on a case-by-case basis. Right now, we know that doctors' primary concerns are they don't want to be running businesses. That's what we're hearing from new grads. So we do have some community partners who are interested in stepping up to run the business component of that, where doctors would be coming into a clinic setting, and they would be doctors. So we've got some forward-thinking doctors and community partners in our area who've been talking to other doctors about what they may want to see. Other incentives, we would be sitting down to talk with those doctors coming here to see what they would be looking at, that kind of thing. We are not at this point committed to purchasing housing or any of that kind of stuff until we have a really good, solid idea, because we recognize that, like you said, they move on after those 2 years. And that obviously was not an incentive that encouraged them to stay. What are the incentives that are encouraging them to stay? Building a community within doctors is also a big priority for them. So making them feel welcome and included within the community is another thing we're seeing.
Thank you.
Okay, any more questions from council? Morris?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is the doctor shortages right across the province, or is it mostly here in the south? Or is it more severe in the south?
You know what? It's right across the province. It's right across the country. Quite frankly, we don't care about them. We worry about our South Zone. So that's why we're focusing on what we can do here in Lethbridge, our South Zone area, and what we can do to recruit doctors here, encourage them to stay here, but also build a platform and put in some infrastructure that we don't see this problem happening again, which is why we're thinking about and talking to and negotiating on a teaching institution as well. Because if we can get young doctors who are learning to come down here, start their practicum placements down here, we can encourage them and get them early and encourage them to stay here. So it is going on throughout the country. We also know that Canada is not graduating enough doctors. So we need to rely on immigration to come in and approval we need to rely on the government of Canada to also be approving those doctors that are coming in. We know the process is slow. So what we're looking at is trying to get ahead of that too. Start working with some other partners, build that teaching community here, and get those doctors to stay here so that we don't find ourselves in another shortage area again.
I heard that, if I may.
Yes, go ahead.
I heard that was a real problem because through the media or whatever, I seen that there were some doctors that were coming from India, and it took forever and ever to get them to be a registered doctor in this country.
Yeah.
That is probably a hurdle what should be worked on too.
Yeah, and that is.
That maybe turned a lot of them off too.
Yeah.
Some to Canada.
Yeah, and we know that that is a challenge as well. Yeah.
Can I add to that?
Yep.
So certainly with our international medical grads, they do sign a 5-year contract when they come to Alberta and start practicing. But it is a long process to get them approved. Now, quite often what we've seen, especially in places like Milk River, an international grad will come there, work there for their 5 years, and then move on to a larger center, because they tend to want to move to larger centers where they can find a community. So when we've got them for 5 years, we think that the work will be easier to retain than to attract. And part of that retention is selling them on the quality of life that they'll have in Lethbridge and the region in terms of affordable housing, shorter commute times, access to the border, to the mountains, and frankly, what families would find attractive. So it's not just attracting the physician, it's attracting their family. So fantastic school systems, post-secondary institutions, a wider range of activities and park spaces for families. So along with recruiting doctors, we also need to look through the lens of retaining our doctors so that we're not doing this again in a few years.
Mm-hmm.
Mark?
I just want to thank you for coming and making the presentation. I agree with you 100%. It's a regional issue. The South Region, right, number
Yep.
one.
Yep.
So I think it's important to do that. And the fact that we're working together, it creates a bigger voice, and that gives us more leverage with the government, or should.
Mm-hmm.
I really appreciate the fact you're talking directly to the doctors and understanding what they want, what they need, because especially with the younger ones, they're changing. Over the years through my business, I've worked with a lot of the doctors through the hospital and the system and chatted with them, and they're all retiring now. So their needs were different than what the new grads are in. So it's good to see that. I think RMA there was an example of a clinic that was set up in one of the communities that was losing doctors, and the municipality built the clinic and rented the spaces out. So it sounds like you're sort of, that's an option too. So there's things out there that we can learn from. But I think that the key takeaway for me is that we're all working together, because this is an issue. And in the South, whether it's agriculture or water, anything that we're dealing with, the more we work together and collaborate, the more it'll help. But this is a key issue now, and just watching this all of a sudden drop off the numbers is really concerning. And I think operating and getting people to see the area and bringing them in, and like you say, making a family networking, and it's for their family. It's just not getting a doctor here to sit in a clinic. It's what's there for their family and wants to bring them to raise a family in this area.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for your information.
And just to tie in on that, the area itself is an incentive. As Ms. Dufresne just explained as well, the cost of living, the affordable housing, how easy it is to get from one area to another, right? We have those automatically already as incentives. So how do we promote that? And how do we build that confidence in our Southern Alberta area that will make people want to come here and stay? And that's what we really need to focus on, is helping people understand what a great place we do live in, with a lot of advantages you wouldn't see in a larger urban region.
Thanks.
Thank you again. And I think that you're doing great work trying to set this all up, and I guess I attended one of those meetings that we had a little while ago, and our CEO and the Reeve have attended some meetings too, and I think that this is a way to collaboratively work together to get something done. And I hear from the MLAs that we are going to get about 10 or 11 doctors coming in here sometime this year, and that looks really great. But I like the initiative that you have of setting something up, and just like Mark said too, up in central northern Alberta, they had set up something like that too, because like the doctors, they do not want us running their own business anymore, and because I mean they have enough work with their patients and everything like that, and I think that we should be working collaboratively with this with a situation like this, and I hope that that we can get some movement in this here. Andy, do you have something?
Just with regards to the financial request of council, I would recommend that we bring a staff report back on August 4th for that meeting of council.
Anybody else? Anything? John, do you have anything?
Sorry, I'm here. No, you didn't lose me. I'm just challenging with bandwidth because I had to transfer into my vehicle. So, I appreciate your presentation, and I do regret.
John,
I think from a financial request, this is something that we have to look at. Can you hear me?
No, John, you're kicking in and out, so we're just going to continue here with here, and then if you get a better spot there, you can always continue in. But yes.
Fair
Lauren.
enough.
Oh, thanks. So I do appreciate your presentation, and I know that the work is essential because you talk to so many people who do not have doctors, whether they live in the city or the country, it doesn't matter. There just aren't any doctors. So I would fully support administration bringing back a report, and I look forward to making a contribution towards this.
Eric?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for coming out today. One part that I can really appreciate is that direct contact. When you mentioned, negotiating individual deals, talking to them, what do they want to see? We're looking at, if we see 10 more doctors come, it'll make a big difference. That can be handled on a one-on-one basis, and I can really appreciate that. And yeah, look forward to seeing what we can do together. So thank you.
Okay, anybody has any more questions? Okay, go ahead.
Just to provide one further piece of context on the financial request, it isn't a request of funds to come to a pot of money that other partners are sharing. It's really an internal commitment that Lethbridge County Council would make to spend that money on physician recruitment in a way that makes sense for Lethbridge County. So it certainly wouldn't be the case of cutting a check. It truly is a partnership where we can demonstrate another regional partner coming to the table to help solve this problem. Each partner gets to do that work in a way that makes the most sense for them. So I just wanted to clarify that for you.
Okay, yeah, thank you for that, because I think that's the only way that we're going to be getting something done, as everybody cooperates and everybody working together. And like said, we're going to be, I think, by the looks of it here, I think we're going to have a good discussion on that one. But like our CEO said, it's going to be probably, staff's going to put a report together, and the 4th of August we will be taking this back again.
And the partners that we've already have are happy to jump on board to help you out with what you need, right?
Yes.
That's the key thing. We're here to collaborate with you on questions you have, what you may need help with.
And I'm happy you got, the CEO of the Economic Development is here too, and I guess he's always got great ideas, and
Sure does.
and so it's good to see that all coming together. And so I know Team Lethbridge is kind of something different, but you get a bigger group to have more ideas and have something more done that way. Would that be just throwing an idea out there that that maybe working with more partners is going to be enhancing this a little bit more?
Yeah, and I think that's something we can certainly, once we get the partners together, we can all sit down and talk about and see what we can do, right? There's no idea that would be off the table for that, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much for coming here, and that the walk wasn't that far this time, probably just across the road.
No, it was good, and it's nice outside. Yeah, exactly. Took our e-scooters over across the street. They're parked out front now.
And you will absolutely hear back from us.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your
very
time.
much for your time. Everybody have a great weekend. It is. Thank you.
So now we are going to move on with a request from the town of Nobleford for fire service transition. And Larry, will you take us through this?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you can see, there's a short report with a letter attached from the town of Nobleford requesting $25,000 for transition costs due to the town of Nobleford taking over the fire response zone in Lethbridge County that was formerly covered by the village of Barons, now that they have disbanded. And when I say that, I'll just point out as well, quickly here, Mr. Chairman, if I may, on a map here, I'll just pull up on your screen, maybe, hopefully, technology will work for us. There we go. So prior to the village of Nobleford Fire Department disbanding, if you see the map.
Barons disbanded.
Barons, pardon me. Yes, thank you. The green area in the northwest of the county, that was the village's response area. Now, with the village no longer providing that service to Lethbridge County, that green area has changed, and it was from right in this area, if you can see the mouse partially. So the town of Nobleford has taken over this area. However, I'll note as well, just to the right or to the east of that area, there's a block of land in here on the north side of Kehoe Lake that has been taken over by the town of Picture Butte. So the area that the village of Barons formerly covered was split in two, in effect, with Nobleford taking the vast majority of the territory. Let's go back to the report there. So the recommendation today, Mr. Chairman, honestly, is just that council have a close look at this and a debate and discussion amongst themselves. I know that our Chief Administrative Officer Mitchell and Reeve Campbell met with their counterparts at the village of Nobleford some time ago, and we were informed that this letter would be forthcoming. A couple notes additional I'll state that is the county has historically paid for fire services as agreed to through a fire service agreement. However, from time to time, there are irregular or unexpected costs that have arisen, and this request from Nobleford, I think, would fit fairly into that category. It's kind of a one-time, irregular, off-the-cuff sort of expense or potential expense for Lethbridge County. It's being requested. Each situation, of course, has been considered by council under these circumstances based on the unique merits of a particular request. And in the letter from the town of Nobleford, they state that unbudgeted incidental expenses, including modifications to their fire hall, are being incurred as a result of them having taken over some of this area formerly covered by the village of Barons. I'd like to note as well, however, that under the current agreement, Lethbridge County already pays $24,000 annually towards fire hall rent and upkeep at the town of Nobleford. And then as well, over the past 4 years, so data from 2018 through 2021 shows that the village of Barons, on average, would respond to about 15 emergency calls into Lethbridge County each year. So an average of 15. And assuming that trend continues, it's the best information we have, the town of Nobleford would respond on average over time to about 15 calls into that area. Perhaps one or two less, assuming that one or two of those calls would come from the area now covered by the town of Picture Butte in the north part of the county there. Alternatives that we've identified, well, obviously, council could provide the request as it's put forth to you and provide a one-time $25,000 contribution to the town to assist them with the transition cost. This might be perceived as the town perceived by the town as obviously a very positive action being taken by the county and further enhance the positive relationships between the two municipalities. On the downside, it may encourage other municipalities to request similar considerations for funding from Lethbridge County outside of the current agreements. In particular, the town of Picture Butte, who has taken on this additional area, to this date have not made a request of Lethbridge County for any additional support. Another option, of course, is to simply refuse to provide any funds as requested. And I think that would maybe have the effect of demonstrating that the county does have finite resources, as we all do, and will continue, however, to honor the commitments made under the current Fire and Rescue Services agreement it has with the town of Nobleford. It could be perceived by the town as a lack of willingness to cooperate if they don't get what they're seeking. Another option, of course, is to perhaps find a figure in between $0 and $25,000 and provide some money towards the town of Nobleford for their request, partially satisfy their request, obviously, and again, how the town perceives that may not be entirely positive. With respect to just overall financial impact, I invoke the expertise of our finance manager on this section, but if the Barons Fire Department had not disbanded, the county would have expected to pay $54,000 in fees this year for emergency services, plus emergency response costs less 10%. And those emergency response costs, in most cases, we would recover from landowners and insurance if it was motor vehicle accidents. The county did pay prorated amount for the calls this year to the village because it was earlier this spring, so part of 2022 that they still provided service to us, as you'll recall, and we paid $10,000 up to that time. We've utilized some of the surplus money, you could say, for implementation of the new emergency management reporting system that all of the departments in the county will utilize, given that the current FDM system is being mothballed, if you will. It's run its useful life. But at this point, the county had approximately $40,000 of the budget for the Village of Barons Fire Service for 2022 remaining. And obviously with $40,000 there, that amount would potentially cover the $25,000 request should council decide to move in that direction. And that's my report.
Lauren?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So a couple of questions come to my mind. The first one being, so if you split the payments, we would be paying to Barons now to Nobleford and to Picture Butte? And how does that split work?
And
Just before we answer that question, Councillor Hickey, I just think something important to point out that we may have missed is that, and Jenn can probably jump in on this, but when we made the new agreements with the people that provided the service, we went more to a fee-for-service model. Now, the request is for capital equipment. We used to have capital equipment agreements attached to the previous fire service agreements. When we went to this new model that is a fee-for-service model, it was to cover the capital cost in those fee-for-services. Did you want to expand on that, Jenn?
I think you have it covered there. But I'll just add that we are paying the $24,000 a year as part of that agreement for fire hall and capital recovery, replacement, expansion, whatever it might be. In addition to that, we did pay out any of the departments that had capital coming up to the end of the agreement term. They were paid in full. Now, in the 2.5, 3 years that the agreement was active, Nobleford didn't have anything coming up for replacement. However, they had been captured in previous years, and that's where we came up with this $24,000 annual payment, which we pay out quarterly. And as Ann mentioned, it is a fee-for-service agreement now. So any of those averaged 15 calls per year, whatever department's responding is going to get paid for that call. And then we'll recover those costs when we invoice the responsible party.
And I believe that the way we built the fee-for-service model, the intent is that that fire department can use those fees and should be using those fees to cover their equipment costs. Correct, Jenn?
Yeah, I believe when we made the agreement, the thought around that, speaking, as I recall with the other CAOs in the room, was that we would use this first 3 years to kind of catch up, and that's why we paid out the 3 years of capital owing on the replacement schedule, and then moving forward, we have to obviously work out details as we discuss, but moving forward, it would be their responsibility because currently the county does not own any of the equipment that is used. It's owned by the individual departments.
So does it look like Nobleford is asking this because they took over the equipment from Barron's and that was worth around that same amount of money?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do know that the equipment they purchased was for an amount in the vicinity of $100,000. So because it was a full fire engine, a Yukon truck, and then the SCBA packs and fill stations, which are quite expensive. So it was about $100,000 that they paid. There was nothing that I'm aware of at all that Lethbridge County, negotiated or consulted, or that town of Nobleford consulted with the county about needing or wanting this extra equipment. It just, I think, appeared.
Yes, the request just.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jen.
I was just going to ask that of those SCBA pieces of equipment, those breathing apparatuses, I think it was in 2018, the county gave every one of the fire departments or municipalities, I think it was, we paid 50% of all of those at the time they were initially purchased. So Nobleford would have received a portion at that time, as well as the village of Barron's on those pieces of equipment.
Yeah,
So could I get an answer to the question I asked?
No, sorry, Lauren. What was your question? We got
So-
way off track there.
So I'm asking you, is the fee we're paying to Barron's, is it now split between Nobleford and Picture Butte? And the second part of the question is, each one gets $24,000 a haul. Is that being split between Picture Butte and Nobleford on the same basis? And if not, why not?
So each of them, under the current agreement, is receiving their own $24,000 annually. The village of Barron's portion is not currently being split. I don't know that,
They're not using the hall.
No, they're not using the hall, to my knowledge.
I fully realize that, but if they're including more equipment to service the area, which we're asking them to do, is it not our responsibility to help them out a bit on that?
That's a decision for council.
I think that because we got the fee for service now, so I think they are going to be, if they're going to have more, that they're going to have more things to go to, they are going to get paid for that no matter what, because of the new agreement that we have. So with them doing more services, they will automatically get more payment because of the fee for service.
But you still haven't answered the first part of my question. Are they splitting what we were paying Barron's?
No, because it's a fee-for-service model. So anytime they go to a call, if it's Picture Butte who responds to the call, they get paid. If it's Nobleford, they get paid.
Okay, so let's start again then, because I'm not getting this. Do we not pay a certain amount every year to each fire hall?
For
Besides
fire
the
hall rent? Yes.
besides the $24,000 bucks,
No.
you pay nothing.
Jen can answer it.
We do pay a retainer, an annual retainer of $10,000 to each of the departments, plus the $24,000, and those are flat fees that we pay up front. We fronted that capital for the past 3 years, anybody that was in the replacement schedule, and then everything additional is the fee for service per call.
So we get 10% of the fee for service,
For our administration, yes.
and they get the 90%.
Did we pay them? Yeah.
Got her answered?
Well, if I was one of those municipalities, I wouldn't be very happy, but because you're asking us to do more.
But you're getting paid for it because of
What?
fee for service.
Yeah, but if you gotta have more equipment to do it, you're behind the ball already.
Okay. Eric?
Thank you. Lots to unwrap here. On Lauren's point, I see where you're coming from. However, it's kind of like a business expanding into a new area. You get to make more profit in the next area. Congratulations, you just unlocked a new area to make money in. And you get your capital retained in every fee. You get paid capital, you get paid all the components in there. So by adopting the Barron's area to Nobleford, they have the opportunity to collect more fee for service, more calls. And that is a comprehensive payment as far as I can understand. That includes everything. So what we're looking at here is they're eyeing up the money that we would normally pay in retainer to Barron's and saying we should be getting that. However, that money was paid before we had fee for service, those agreements. And now that it's all fee, it's included. It's comprehensive. Also, I guess this is question part, of that equipment they bought from Barron's, how much, what percentage did we have invested into it, which they got to benefit from, and from what I can understand, it was at a very good price that they got it all purchased at. So we've technically contributed in that manner as well. Yeah, can you comment on what we had invested into it?
Yeah.
I don't believe we had any ownership in their equipment, other than we contributed 50% to the breathing apparatus, and then we were paying them under the new agreement $20,000 to just Barron's because we didn't have that capital replacement with them, $20,000 a year. So in 2021, when did we sign the agreement? 2020? So in 2020 they got 20,000. 2021 they got 20,000, and then we would have we paid a quarterly amount, I guess, for the first portion of this year, based on the agreement.
Okay, thank you. So what I could see, a few things where I would like to see this go is if we do end up contributing some, I'd like to include Picture Butte proportionately right up front. Request or no request. If we're going to pay out some for expansion, I'd like to see percentage-wise, area-wise, whatever, Picture Butte immediately included. That way we don't have to go through it again, which we could expect. And secondly, we can afford it. It would look good on cooperation, but is it completely necessary? I don't think it's completely necessary, but more on the spirit of cooperation, I would look at considering some amount of a contribution on their transition cost.
I think I agree with you partially there, because I think if we're a step ahead of that with Picture Butte, because we know that if Picture Butte hears that we contribute $25,000 to Nobleford, they're going to be on the phone right away. And I think if we, if we kind of have kind of a goodwill in there that they are also getting a small portion, maybe we could do it in a different way. But the 25 that they're asking right now is, I find, is a little bit much for what they're going to be doing, because we're talking about they don't need no capital, because they're getting capital paid every year, no matter what kind of a fire hall you have. I mean, it's and they said modification to the fire hall. Does that mean they're gonna enlarge their fire hall in order to house that other equipment? I mean, $25,000 won't go very far in that. So I'm kind of thinking they're doing some other things instead of building that one bigger. I don't know if anybody's got any answers to that one. No?
One of the questions too is to keep in mind that I think there really was a disconnect between the current administration in Nobleford and the previous administration in Nobleford, because the previous administration was involved in all the negotiations. So that's one thing to consider. But I do agree with if we go ahead to make sure that Picture Butte is compensated as well. I do agree with that. I do like the idea of percentage base. So if the request is $25,000 and council agrees to the $25,000, then Nobleford gets this. They're looking at this. Say they're looking at 70% of Barron's, and then Picture Butte's doing 30. Then that's the way it should be divided up. I do, if we go forward in that way. But.
Any more questions here? John, are you still there? comments from staff? No? Okay, where do we want to go from here? The recommendation that's in front of you, that is asking for the 25, and are we going to do that, or are we not going to do that? I mean, that's the way it reads.
And the recommendation, just for clarity, reads the, that council decide whether do some, none, or all. Yep. Just to make sure.
So personally, I really like the idea that Anne had, like with that I'd split it into 70-30, or what would be correct, and maybe you want to look at that you have it exactly right with the percentage in the area that they're taking over, and that we and then looking at that way and just set a certain amount there, because we have the amount from that we still have in the kitty from Barron's, and that we look at that amount and then we do something with that.
I just have a suggestion. I know they've required 25,000, but if we're trying to figure out how to cover capital costs, that Barron's did get 20,000. We've already given Barron's 20,000. Is that correct, Jen?
Not for 2022. We just gave them, we split that into a quarterly amount. So I think they had 2 calls in the first quarter, and then we gave them the first quarter of the fire hall rent and the first quarter of the $10,000 retainer.
Oh, okay.
And then
we didn't.
It added up to the total of the 10,000. However, we negotiated that with them.
So we haven't paid out the 20,000 for 2020?
No, we just paid 10,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so if the amount that Nobleford is requesting is 25,000, if council wants to, we could take the 20,000 that Barron's was allocated through the agreement for capital and split it up, percentage of area that they're covering and percentage of area that Pitcher Butte's covering. Just an option.
May I also
Okay.
just make a recommendation? If council is thinking of going that route, I don't think the letter was specific, but we may want to say a one-time transition fee, one-time transition payment.
Would it be fair to ask staff to come back for next meeting with, the percentage exactly and the proposal that we're kind of talking about right now? Because I think right now to go into setting amounts, I think is kind of inappropriate right now.
We can certainly come back at the August 4th with some options.
Okay, Mark?
Yeah, I'd like to just see what the percentages are and say, this is the dollars we have in our budget. This is what, if we paid, for example, Barron's or Nobleford gets the $25,000, what's the percentage that would be going to Pitcher Butte, or just the exact percentage? And then 3 options of giving them, if we gave Nobleford 25, this is what would go to Pitcher Butte, or 20 or 15 or whatever, but just have those numbers in front of us, and then a map of the actual spots and percentages, just so that it's, yeah.
Okay. Eric?
Yeah,
I got Eric first.
thank you, Mr. Chair. While those graphs are nice, they show us nice information, they don't really change the data. So I'm actually prepared if we were to come to a vote to look at putting up 25,000 split proportionately, as 25 is the total, and splitting it out. That'd be something I'd be willing to support at this point.
Yeah, Ann?
So just for clarity, Councillor Van Essen, the 25 that they're requesting, so we did have earmarked for Barron's 20,000 in capital, not 25. I just want to make sure that we've got the amount right.
Morris?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. All I wanted to say is, the cost of that transition, what they asking for, that 25,000, which maybe should be split between Pitcher Butte and Nobleford. I can see some of they're asking for that, because there is definitely gonna be some, quite a bit more administration to get it set up and then also to carry on. I know they're getting a fee for each call out, but this is a transition what has to be made, and that is probably gonna be somewhat of an extra cost, that's the way I kind of. However, if I rent you water, do I have to pay you a?
You betcha. Yeah, okay, Ann?
I just didn't get a answer from Councillor Van Essen. Is it the 25 they're requesting or the 20,000? Is that what we're looking at?
Based on you with the 10,000, then 20 split out would be adequate.
Can you say that again?
So I looking to recommend that we take a $20,000 lump sum and let administration split it according to, based on area, between Nobleford and Picture Butte. So roughly, they would be getting like 15,000 Nobleford and 5,000 Picture Butte, roughly. And whether we have the data on the area or not, I don't think is relevant to the decision.
So to the rest of council, that amount of 20,000, is everybody okay with that? That staff looks at that and comes back with a report next month with the 20,000, or do we want to see a different amount there?
My clarification with Councillor Van Essen, he didn't really request a report coming back. I think what he was recommending, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think you were saying that we could vote on it today and then direct staff to deal with it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm
Make
good
that a
with
motion?
I guess I can make the motion, we can discuss it further. So I'd like to make the motion that we take a total amount of $20,000 and direct staff to divide it up between Nobleford and Picture Butte based on area, in response to their letter, and specify that this is a one-time transition payment.
Any more comments on that one, on the motion? Mark?
Yeah, I think we've gone around, the reason I was requesting more information on it is before we voted, or put a motion on the table, is to understand what are the costs, like Nobleford's given their brief explanation of what they needed, but to talk to Picture Butte and find out how it's affected them, and then to make it a fair and equitable piece. Then we can come up with a number, whether it needs to be more than that or less or whatever, but I still don't think we have enough information right now. We've got a request from Nobleford with sort of these are the pieces of equipment we bought, and we want this dollar figure, but how has it impacted Picture Butte? Have they bought extra equipment? Is it going to? That's where I'm at with this, so that's why it was the suggestion to move this till the next meeting. We come back with more information so we can have a more informed discussion, or moving forward. So that's.
Okay. Is there any comment of staff there on that? What the questions that Mark was asking there, like with Picture Butte, with that they would also need extra. You don't know that either. More, Lauren.
Thank you. I guess, too, the question might be, did they buy the Barron's pumper because it will replace their old town pumper? Like, I think we should know that kind of stuff before we, jump in.
So I know this question came up previously, and one of the things is, and I think we really need to highlight the minimal amount of calls that happen in the Barron zone, and that when we were looking at the overall service provision, when we were redoing the agreement, we recognized that we didn't need as many fire departments. However, we continued on working regionally. But one of the things is, where was I going with that? I lost my train of thought there. But one of the things that is important is that Nobleford went ahead and purchased this equipment and then came to us after. So I'm not sure if this equipment is needed to answer those calls, but I know that previously, and you've experienced this, Councillor Hickey, Nobleford did take over that area and managed it with the current equipment that they do have now.
Nobody? So we got a motion on the table here that Candace, do you have the motion there?
Administration divides $20,000 between Nobleford and Picture Butte based on area as a one-time payment towards fire service transition costs.
Okay. John, do you have anything? Why am I yelling to him? Does it help? He's
I'm good to vote on this.
Okay, so he was okay. So we're gonna vote on this, on the motion, and so everybody in favor?
What's the motion out here?
Candace just read it, but you didn't hear.
That administration divide $20,000 between Nobleford and Picture Butte based on area as a one-time payment towards fire service transition costs.
Yeah, I think we can live with that. All right, everybody in favor?
John, are you?
John?
John?
I'm opposed.
Okay, that's defeated.
Defeated.
Okay, who's opposed? And John.
And myself.
Okay, that's 2. Oh, you were in favor just now? Okay, so that's 4 to 2.
No, it's 3-3. 3-3.
Oh, it's 3-3. Who was off? Okay, okay. So that's a tie.
So Larry, how does that work?
Lost.
Larry.
Lost. Okay.
Lost?
Correct.
Okay,
Okay, we will advise Nobleford that it was lost.
Can we take it any farther and put a recommendation?
I think that for right now, if I may, I guess I can, that because I wouldn't just directly say no, because I think we're going into a direction that makes a lot of sense, and I think that I would like to see, like what Mark just mentioned a little bit before, that staff come back with a report next month and see if we can get some consensus here.
Should that be a motion or?
You can direct staff without a motion.
Hmm.
Those who are opposed, would you be interested in putting forth some ideas of what you'd like to see?
Okay, Mark. There
So
you go.
that was the discussion we had earlier, is that one of my recommendation was to bring back some more information to us so we could make an informed decision as opposed to putting a motion on the floor at this time.
What
So
specific type of information?
finding out the coverage that Picture Beauty's take, the percentage of coverage they're taking over, the calls that would have been in that area for them. So just which one of the 2 fire departments is affected the most by this, if we're gonna be equitably distributing the money?
So we don't want the area percentage, it's more calls that we need, or? I know it's 15 calls per year.
Yeah.
In the whole area, but yeah.
And that may vary, I mean, it's probably easier, just the areas that they're covering, let's do that, because the calls would be different. I mean, it depends on what happens. So let's, the area that they're coverage, the coverage area.
Okay, and anything else?
Can I chime in?
Yeah.
If we're gonna go down this rabbit hole, I would like to hear from the town of Nobleford the justification for the extra equipment.
Okay.
Yeah,
Anything else,
noted.
John?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Lord?
Well, I think that pretty much covers up mine, because they serviced the area before, a bigger area with the equipment they had, so are they buying this equipment from parents for their own use or to service what they added on, an explanation of what it is, that's all.
Eric?
I was actually under the impression on the equipment that some of it was opportunity buys.
I'm sure it was.
And it may not have been necessary, but it was also, it stayed within the county. It is still helping the residents within the area, and it probably made financial sense to just go ahead and get it done at this point rather than having it sold out of the area, from what I was told.
Hey, put it this way, that was literally a fire sale.
Okay, does staff have enough information on, to go ahead with going at it next month again?
We do.
Okay, so that is all done. So then, with that, is the food there?
Yeah, so I think it's almost here, so we should break because the next item is going to be a
Me,
lengthy discussion.
could be a longer one too, yeah. Okay, then we'll break for lunch.
Very
And
good.
What time
Thank
are
you.
we returning?
we'll be back here. Well, it just depends when the food comes. We're gonna go on to the next. Ann, can you also pay attention? We're at infrastructure, and we're gonna start with the exciting one of commercial, industrial, municipal tax incentive bylaw. Devin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So as council knows, we completed the public engagement component of the proposed commercial and industrial municipal tax incentive bylaw. The engagement included a survey that was advertised on the county website, social media, county app, radio advertisements, and newspaper ads. We also hosted an open house at the Ready Made Community Hall on June 8th, and several members of the community showed up for that. Some background information. So the feedback received, which is in your agenda package, are fairly close. We're looking at about 56% of the respondents against and 44% in favor. A total of 79 surveys were filled out and submitted, which represents approximately 0.7% of the overall county population. The survey was more successful than others we've done in the past, but it's still a fairly low representation of the overall population. Another aspect to consider when reviewing this incentive bylaw is the challenges we're facing with potable water and wastewater services. Although several businesses don't require those services, many do, and those businesses typically have a higher assessed value because there's some sort of production or processing that goes along with it. I don't have a recommendation for you at this time. We brought this report forward for council to deliberate the feedback received and give administration direction on how you would like this, how you would like administration to proceed based on the feedback that we have received to date.
Okay, thank you, Devin. Does anybody want to open up with good comment? Okay, Morris?
I'd like to thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to all the rest of you down here. And of course, you know, this whole thing, first of all, I thought it was pretty low interest showing up to the open house we had, and that is certainly telling me something, that there is no real big outcry for people wanting to see more businesses coming into the county. That's just my opinion. The big one is, you know, the water. And if we, before we're gonna give an incentive, let's say, to businesses coming on here, we still have the problem with water. So I would really like to revisit this thing with the city of Lethbridge. What about us getting more water? And even if we would have to pay a lump sum of money, you know, towards their water treatment plant, you know, to guarantee that we can get more water, I think that would make a lot more sense to me than coming up with this commercial business incentive. And I think the commercial business incentive is an absolutely a no, because we can't offer certain things. And the way the public open house went down there, to me, that was so obvious, it's not even funny. And I will rest of that.
So with that one there, I'd like to give it to Ann a minute, that you can give a little bit of an explanation on the water thing for council.
Thank you. And I believe council knows that we've been working on this water situation, potable water situation, for quite some time. We did meet with Minister Nixon when he was the Minister of Environment in March in this year. He did give us his parliamentary secretary to work with us on a regional water steering committee. They met on the 28th, and that was the initial meeting. The city was in attendance. So our MLA, Nathan Newdorf, is the parliamentary secretary. He chaired and hosted the meeting. And we are looking at a regional steering committee to address our water shortage. Obviously, it's going to take a bit of time, but we have started the groundwork, so this is positive. Having the city, the irrigators at the table, we've also got some opportunities that I had a meeting yesterday or the day before with some federal funders. There may be some dollars there that we can undertake the study and it could be funded. So I know we're far away from actually getting the increase to water, but the groundwork is being laid right now.
Okay, thank you for that, because I think that kind of explains a lot of the situation that the dire situation that we're in for water and wastewater, yeah. Eric?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the business tax bylaw, there can be some good positives coming out of it. I see through a lot of people's comments and that they do not fully understand how it would be set up. There's a lot of concern that it would backload onto residential acreage and that there's concerns voiced a few times through there. In discussions with people in my area, I've ended up with a neutral amount of feedback. So some for, some against, nobody heavily one way or other within my division. Probably even somewhat leaning towards for. But if I go through the comments, and when I look at a survey, it's easy to do yes or no, but to comment means you're more engaged. And I take their comments and tally them. We have 21 against, 5 for with modifications, and 10 for. So that puts a far greater disparity between for and against than just a yes, no. This is engaged people who have some amount of impact. So yeah, reading through that, I've started to say either we got to look at it different to some extent, more. I can't even say more understanding, because the information is there, and if there's people who are against it, we can explain it. Pretty much it's going to have to be a one-on-one, because the information is there, but lots, almost double on the against once it comes down to actual comments. So more, in my opinion, more work one way or other. I'd have to really put it down to bullet points. It'd be tough, but I think we can still do something at some point.
Okay, thank you, Eric. Anybody else? Lauren?
Thank you. I guess I have received quite a few comments as well. And I would probably say pretty much split down the middle. Biggest concern is, I think, one that's wasn't probably thoroughly understood by the people complaining, and that is, well, why should we have to pay so much in hamlet taxes or country residential, and these guys get a break and we don't. I don't think they fully understand the potential of what additional business brings to the table. But the other comments I did receive is the limits, $50,000 is way too low, and 100% the first year, maybe a bit high, maybe 75 and work on a scale going down from there, but not 100%. Thank you.
Okay. Any more comments? John, are you there? Oh. John, lunchtime is over. Okay. Mark?
I just going to say two questions. One is, is there a timeline on this? I don't think there is. Moving forward, I mean, we have to have some goals, but and the other piece is these has the survey's been closed off, or are people still coming online, or are we still getting feedback?
I believe the surveys have closed. Yeah.
And
Just one thing too that we should remind council of is that this was brought forward because we had quite a few economic development proponents that wanted this, and it's common practice in some other municipalities, so they were looking forward to this. That's the only time constraint. Nothing overly pressing though, certainly. I think that's it.
okay, so I think that the survey. Well, the surveys are never as well attended as that we always want, and I think that with seeing the results from this one here, I think incentives, I think businesses are looking for that. If you're going to give a little incentive, that means that you want business in your county, you're open for business. And if, they're in a like a little bit like, am I going to go there or there? And you give a little incentive, and it looks like other municipalities have done that and it has worked. So I really are in favor of going that route. And I know we have water problems and this and that, there was shortage of that, but I think we still could look at, having other businesses come in that are not in need of that amount of water and everything like that, and that we could still move ahead with these incentives. That's personal, my personal opinion on that one.
Well, if I may.
Yeah.
The thing is, what I said earlier down there, I'm not against an incentive, but I think if that's the kind of money we're going to throw towards the businesses to have that incentive to come, personally, I feel, it's so little because to the business they got to run already, the amount of money they need to go around, that incentive is so small. I think if there is interest of businesses to come to the county, I think, personally, I feel they're going to come anyways. However, that doesn't mean that that I'm going to be saying we should scrap maybe the incentive, still have the incentive in place, but I think they're going to come anyways. If we make, the area, or for that matter, Alberta, aware of, hey, we're interested in attracting businesses to our county.
Yes.
Thank you. I guess the other comment there, just that Morris reminded me of it. Most people say, well, if you're going to do any infrastructure upgrades, then you shouldn't be eligible for a tax incentive. Like it's one or the other.
Ann?
I would agree with that, Councillor Hickey, and I know there was one development that there would have had to been considerable roads upgrades, so that kind of came back very clearly that it was either A, we give you a tax break, or B, we give you water upgrades or road upgrades, depending on what you needed for your development.
Okay. So what direction do we want to take on this one? Do we want to pursue this, or are we going to go according to exactly by the letter with the survey that the majority said they didn't want it, or what do we want? Eric?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple things. Retroactive, is it included in the current bylaw?
It is not.
Okay.
No.
I would support retroactive based on however many years back, and going forward. That's something that I think is feasible.
Just a cautionary note that might be a bit of an administrative nightmare to go retroactive.
Okay, thank you. Secondly, as for following the survey or following our opinions, we were elected to make decisions, and putting it down to the survey is then what are we here for, kind of thing. So definitely prepared to have free vote on it versus just following the survey.
Yeah, I've thought about it that way too, and I think that we've been put in this spot to make decisions, but it's always still nice to get some feedback from your taxpayer, and I think that that's very important that we do that and keep them in the loop, because we don't want to sit here as a dictatorship, because I don't think that is the whole idea either. But like in something serious as this, for trying to get more business into the county, we've been asked so often, are we open for business, or are we closed for business, what are we doing about it? And I think, and that was with an open house a couple of years ago, that question got asked a couple times, and I think that, with that in mind, I think that I would like to move ahead with this one and see that we can get something comes out of this one, because I think it's very important. Morris?
Yeah, thank you. To pass this, do we have to have a tax number on there right away, or do we just pass this bylaw that we will have some incentive, and then we can decide later what type of an incentive we want? Does that need to be in a bylaw now or not?
So would you like to see that, like if we make it a bylaw, we gotta make it with incentive, or you say that staff comes back next time with some numbers, with the incentive, and do it that way, instead of making a decision on that today? Lauren?
So, yeah, do that. So, yeah, basically what I'm looking for is pass this bylaw, you know, that there is a possibility for some incentive for businesses to come, but not setting a number on that, like percentages or dollars or anything for that matter.
Okay.
So could you address that in the schedule of fees? Or well, I personally kind of think it's a little bit dangerous to have a bylaw with no numbers in it, but if it was attached to a schedule, maybe it shouldn't be the schedule of fees, but the schedule of some kind, that might work.
Yeah, and I think one of the challenges too, I understand where Councillor Zeenstra's coming from, but if we have it and it's sort of nebulous and not written out and laid out, then it's too much room for interpretation, and then we're trying to be equitable and fair to every business. So if we don't have it written, then there's no clarity. So that's why I think having the bylaw is pretty critical. Whether it's in the fees, we could, or not. Does it have to be a separate bylaw, Jen?
I don't think it necessarily has to be a separate bylaw. It's pretty extensive, and it's related more to tax than fees.
Yeah.
A fee for service. So I would suggest keeping it as its own bylaw.
Okay.
Thank you. In order to make better decisions and to iron out some of these things, is there an appetite to take it to a special meeting that we spend a few hours, go through it, and adjust up and down, and bring something that we are all fully aware of the content of it, and that by the end of that meeting we have a pretty solid, this is what we'd like, and bring that to vote on. Yes, you have built a bylaw, and it is quite comprehensive, but I don't understand it all.
I think that's a fabulous idea.
So, question, could we build that into one of the special meetings that we have coming up?
We'll try, but we have to do a little bit of work first, so it'll be a month at least before we can bring it forward.
Lauren?
I'm just wondering if everybody could kind of make a suggestion what numbers they're kind of
Looking for,
comfortable
yep.
with, would probably help administration a great deal. Like, to me, I think if you're not spending $500,000, I don't see why you should be eligible. And I would like to see just a 3-year tax relief, 75, 55, and 25, and 0 in the 4th year.
For clarity's sake too, so is council looking at us coming back with different options and different bylaws? Also, there has been some recent municipalities that have implemented them. We haven't had a chance to research because that just happened a day ago. Again, those are urban centers, but I'd like us to dig a little deeper into what other rurals are doing, not necessarily just here in Alberta, but across Canada. So.
Okay. Devin?
Just one thing to add, I broke down the comments a little bit further to provide some clarity about the threshold, and just based on the comments, it looks like about 66.6% felt it was too low. And when I took the numbers that they were suggested in there and I averaged it, it was about 250,000 was the average of all the suggestions, just to bring those comments into some context for you.
Eric?
So what I'd probably like to see from staff at the meeting, we can email back and forth numbers and all that ahead of time, but that explaining what we have, and then we can work up and down and adjust it. So to say that you have multiple bylaws ready for us and multiple options, I think that would be redundant, because it's fairly open at this point. secondly, I'm just catching it as I'm reading comments now here. Somebody put in there that's much less than a new pivot. This is not going to be eligible to farm related as far as I was understanding. So that's also, there's an impression too that it's gonna touch farm stuff as well.
That's correct. It has to be zoned commercial or industrial.
Yeah. Mhm. Okay, if looks like we're agreeing with coming back to kind of a special meeting, whenever that's possible, that we can fit something in, and with some more information, and maybe just have some different scenarios with like from the size wise and or the amount wise that you start with a business or not. And then I think you can come back with a whole bunch, and I think we can pick and choose a little bit more.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So now we'll move on to
What? No.
administration. So proposed changes to the county safety policy, and we'll ask
Mrs.
our
Blue.
HR person to come forward.
Did you have my color pulled up when you guys were doing it?
Yeah, we went through
You
it
just
thoroughly.
Can I get the live stream on that?
No. It was in camera.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, Council. I am here today to present some proposed changes to County Safety Policy 800. Last year in our core audit, or the Certificate of Recognition audit, it was brought to light some recommended changes to that safety policy, specified the commitment to physical, psychological, and social well-being as a missing component. We currently call it a safety policy. But if you flip into the definitions under occupational health and safety, it takes you a little bit deeper into that, and it includes the physical, psychological, and social well-being as part of the definition for health and safety. Upon this recommendation, and then with feedback from our Joint Health and Safety Committee, as well as research conducted by Sandy, our safety coordinator, and Laura, we have put together what we think is a more comprehensive and updated policy, and have that for proposal today. The recommendation that I'm putting forward is to adopt the proposed changes to Policy 800 and rescind Policy 803 and combine that into new Policy 800. My reason for the recommendation is it will align the health and safety requirements with Alberta occupational health and safety legislation. We last looked at this policy back in 2018. I believe it was a really minor review in 2018. It was just some changes of our logo and things like that to bring us into some changes there. Changes included in Policy 800 would include a name change from just the county safety policy to the health and safety policy. The removal of some language around our goal in the previous policy was to have 0 lost time accidents. That's still a metric that we would track and trend, but it isn't the core goal of having a safety program. We want to make sure that we're looking out for the health, safety, and well-being of all people while they're here at the county work site. Policies 800 and 803, we thought combining those, you would only have to go to one document, which is the overarching document for our entire safety program. Instead of having to look at 2 separate documents, it made sense, in our opinion, to consolidate that into one. We could leave the policies as an alternative into 2 separate documents, but we do want to look to refresh and make sure that we are listening to the recommendations of the external core audit that was done in 2021. And we do not see any financial implications with the changes proposed in these policies. Is there any questions of council?
Thank you, Dana. Are there any questions from council? Lauren?
Yeah, I guess I'm a little lost on your background information. It says the county will continue to track and report lost time statistics will not be the primary goal. But isn't safety the primary goal, whether it's mental health issue or?
That's exactly it. So we think changing it away from the just lost time accidents, it's to promote the health, psychological well-being of employees. So we made it a little bit broader than our previous policy, which is attached there. You can read it. It's on page 91. It says, our objective is to reduce workplace hazards through good management practices in combination with active staff involvement. Our goal is to have 0 lost time accidents.
We do still look at lost time accidents, and the county has done an incredible job. It's our staff's commitment every single day that has helped us achieve close to 1,800 days without a lost time accident, which is an amazing accomplishment. So we do watch and trend that statistic. We just don't think it's the overarching goal of the safety program. Did that answer your question, Lauren?
I guess I don't follow why it isn't that. I don't understand that.
So lost time accidents is just really how you manage safety incidents. So if somebody was hurt at the job, if you can get them back to work, even on modified duties, it wouldn't count against your WCB record as a lost time accident. So it's all about how you manage injuries and accidents at the workplace.
But to me, lost time is much broader than just having an accident. I mean, you have lost time because somebody has mental issues or something like that as well. So I don't.
So what we're looking to do is right now, it's just what's called the county safety policy. So we're trying to change that to health and safety, but incorporating the psychological, physical, and mental well-being as well inside of that policy, where, as I read in the previous version, it was a little bit narrower in scope. Yes.
Any more comments or questions from council? Okay, what is the direction? Oh, Eric?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. From what I understand.
Oh,
You
good.
missed the important part.
Yeah, good morning, John. Okay, go ahead.
From what I understand, actually, where the administration is going with this is directly ties into what you're concerned about, and it is encompassing that better to go further that way. And I can see that this is the way things are going. They'd like to encompass all aspects, so probably the right way to go.
Okay, direction here from council, which way, what do we want to do? Want to come with a recommendation, or? Okay, Larry, do we have to rescind it first before we go with the other one, or you want to do it all at once?
No, I didn't read the policy, Mr. Chairman, but it may talk about, I'm not sure if there's wording in there about rescinding the previous policy right within the policy itself, as a bylaw
Yeah.
typically does.
Yes, I believe that's right. It says adopt proposed changes to policy 800 and rescind 803 as a combined into 800.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I'd like to make the motion that we adopt proposed changes to policy 800 and rescind 803 as combined into 800.
Okay, thank you, Eric. So Eric moves that we adopt the recommendation, and any more questions on this one? If not, everybody in favor? John?
I'm in favor.
That's carried.
Thank you very much.
Unless you want to record it.
Yeah, I want to be opposed. I am opposed.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're opposed? I am. And then it covers it off as it is.
Okay.
You know, changes are always good.
Yeah. Okay, then we're going to move on to correspondence, and that is a letter from the County of St. Paul, just informing us of the rising fees of the Alberta utilities and everything. So if there's no comments or anything on this here, if we don't want to do anything with it or just want to accept it as information, that is
I'll move so.
okay. Everybody in favor? Carried. And now we'll move down to the H1, that's the bursary award.
Yes. Oh, Jesus.
You want me to sit down? Yeah, go ahead, Jen.
This is lunch.
No, but not when you're presenting.
Oh,
You're
You can
good.
take it with you.
I'm not even an orange, and I object to it.
What do you want, to take his own chair on?
Yeah.
Well, greetings, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to come and present today to you. We had the pleasure of serving on the bursary committee. We met last week, the week before, and it was Morris and John and myself and Jen. We received 13 applications.
Actually, Lauren.
Lauren, I'm sorry, Lauren. It was Lauren, sorry. Jeez. We received 13 applications, and of those, 8 met the requirements. The quality was, I was really impressed with the quality that we had. We had budgeted to award 2 scholarships, so we went through it and all agreed at the end that we would pick our top 2 choices. And the top 2 choices that we came up with were Kaylee Moorhead and Taya Nickel. Both of these young ladies had excellent essays that they sent in. They're both going into agriculture. They're from this area, and it was really encouraging to see not only theirs but all the other applications. So I think in the past there's been cases where we haven't had enough, and we've only this year we just had the 2. But moving forward, if this continues, we may potentially be looking at budgeting for a few more scholarships, because I think it's important for these, the youth in our community to be supported moving forward in any post-secondary endeavors they have, just because of the cost factor. So anyway, so I guess the motion I would like to make is that the county awards the 2022 bursary in the amount of $1,000 each to be presented at the county council meeting on August 4th, 2022 to the following selected applicants: Kaylee Moorhead and Taya Nickel.
Okay, thank you very much, Mark, for that presentation. And I must say these are very, very qualified 2 individuals, and I'm impressed with what they've all done in their short life that they had. Yeah, it's great, everything they accomplished. Yeah. So
The committee was good working, and the committee was really good too. It was a good discussion. It was good to go through all this together. Jen put it all together. Appreciate that. So.
And what an improvement having 13 come in now instead of only a couple, or just about begging to get some people coming in. Yeah. Okay, there's a motion on the floor, and anybody have any questions or anything like that yet? If not, everybody in favor? Opposed?
I am in favor.
Oh, thanks, John. Okay. That pretty much does it for the meeting here today. Is there anything else that anybody wants to bring up?
Motion to adjourn.
You can't do that from presenter position.
What are you gonna do?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay. Everybody in favor? Opposed?
I did it for us.
Okay.
Thank you.
John?